The research ship Starlight moved slowly through space near the planet, Kepler 442b. The ship was home to both humans and aliens working together. Captain Jake Morrison was in charge of the human crew members. Dr. Velith led the alien team. The aliens were called Zephyrians. They were tall and thin with skin that looked like crystal. They had been the first aliens that humans ever met 3 years ago. Dr. Amy Collins worked as the ship's expert on alien life forms. She spent most of her time with Dr. Crix, who was a Zephyrian scientist. Together, they studied all the different animals and plants on planets they visited. The planet below them was full of life. There were many dangerous animals there. The most scary ones were called Void Stalkers by the Zephyrians. Void Stalkers were huge monsters. They stood 8 feet tall and had claws as sharp as knives. Their skin was like armor that could not be cut easily. They moved very fast and could tear through steel like paper. The Zephyrians had studied these creatures for many years. They knew that Void Stalkers were the most dangerous hunters in this part of space. Amy looked out the window at the green and blue planet below. "It's beautiful," she said to Dr. Crix, "but also very dangerous." Dr. Crix's crystal skin glowed. Softly as he spoke, "Yes, Dr. Collins, that planet has killed many explorers. The Void Stalkers hunt in packs. They are smart and fast. Nothing can fight them and win." Captain Jake Morrison walked into the science lab. He was a strong man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had fought in many wars before becoming a ship captain. "How's the research going?" he asked. "We need to collect samples from the surface," Amy said, "but it's risky. The Void Stalkers control most of the land areas." Jake nodded. "We'll be careful. Take a small team and get what you need quickly." The next morning, a small shuttle left the Starlight. On board were 6 humans and 4 Zephyrians. Amy led the science team. Engineer Pete Davis checked all the equipment. Medic Lisa. Kane carried medical supplies. The shuttle pilot was a young man named Chris. The Zephyrians brought their energy weapons. These guns could kill most creatures with one shot. Dr. Velith carried a scanner that could detect Void Stalkers from far away. Dr. Crix had sample containers for plants and soil. The other 2 Zephyrians, Dr. Nith and Dr. Zane, brought cameras. To record everything. The shuttle landed in a forest clearing. The trees were tall and purple with silver leaves. Strange flowers grew everywhere. The air smelled sweet, but also dangerous. Amy started collecting plant samples while Pete set up a communication link with the ship. "Signal is weak," Pete said, frowning at his equipment. "Something is blocking our transmission." Dr. Velith checked his scanner. "No Void Stalkers nearby. We should be safe for now." For 2 hours, the team worked without problems. Amy found many new types of plants. The Zephyrians recorded everything carefully, but then Pete noticed smoke coming from the shuttle. "We have a problem," he called out. "The engine is overheating." Everyone ran back to the shuttle. Black smoke poured from the back of the small ship. Pete opened the engine cover and stepped back quickly. "It's completely burned out. We're not flying anywhere." Lisa checked the communication equipment. "The radio is dead too. We can't call for help." Dr. Velith's crystal skin turned dark with worry. "This is very bad. We are in Void Stalker territory. They hunt at night." Jake stayed calm. He had been in worse situations before. "How long until the Starlight notices we're missing?" 6 hours, Chris said. "That's when we were supposed to report back." "And how long until dark?" Jake asked. Amy looked at the alien sun. "About 4 hours." Dr. Crix was shaking with fear. "You don't understand. Void Stalkers can smell us from miles away. When night comes, they will hunt us." No one has ever survived a Void Stalker attack. Jake started looking through their supplies. They had emergency food, water, and basic tools. The Zephyrians had their energy weapons, but Dr. Veleth said they were damaged in the shuttle crash. Only one gun still worked properly. We need shelter, Jake said. Somewhere we can defend ourselves. They found a small cave in some rocks nearby. It had only one entrance, which was good for defense. Pete and Chris moved all their supplies inside. Amy and Lisa gathered wood for a fire. The Zephyrians huddled together, their crystal skin glowing dimly with fear. As the sun started to set, the forest became quiet, too quiet. Even the alien birds stopped singing. Dr. Veleth's scanner began beeping softly. "They're coming," he whispered. 3 of them, maybe 4. Jake checked the energy weapon. It had enough power for maybe 10 shots. How many shots does it take to kill one? At least 5, Dr. Veleth said. Their armor is very thick, and they move too fast to aim properly. The teens sat in the cave as darkness fell. They had built a small fire near the entrance. Pete worked on an emergency beacon, trying to fix it so they could call for help. But the parts were badly damaged. Dr. Nith, the youngest Zephyrian, was crying softly. Her crystal skin flickered like a broken light. "We're all going to die," she said. "Void Stalkers have killed entire armies. They're perfect killers." "No creature is perfect," Jake said quietly. "Everything has weaknesses. We just need to find them." Dr. Crix looked at the human captain with surprise. "You cannot fight a Void Stalker with bare hands. They are 8 feet tall with claws like swords. Their skin can stop bullets. They move faster than your eyes can follow. Then we'll have to be smarter." Jake said. From outside the cave came a low growling sound. Everyone froze. The sound was deep and scary, like nothing they had ever heard before. Dr. Veleth's scanner showed 3 dots moving closer to their position. Amy grabbed Jake's arm. "Maybe we should try to run." "No," Jake said. "Running in the dark is suicide. We make our stand here." The growling got louder. Now they could hear footsteps on the rocks outside. Heavy footsteps from something very big. Lisa turned off the fire quickly, but it was too late. The creatures already knew where they were. 2 glowing red eyes appeared at the cave entrance. Then 4 more eyes. Then 6. 3 Void Stalkers had found them. In the darkness, the creatures looked like nightmares come to life. Their black armor-like skin absorbed all light. Their claws scraped against the rock as they moved. The largest Void Stalker stepped forward. It was huge, bigger than the others. Scars covered its armor, showing it was an experienced killer. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The sound it made was like metal being torn apart. Dr. Veleth raised the energy weapon with shaking hands. "Stay back," he warned the creatures. But his voice was weak with terror. The lead Void Stalker looked at the small group of aliens and humans. It had hunted for many years. It had killed hundreds of different creatures from dozens of worlds. These new prey looked weak and afraid. Easy kills. But then the creature's eyes focused on Jake Morrison. The human male was not shaking with fear like the others. He stood calmly, watching the predators with steady eyes. This was different. This prey was not afraid. The Void Stalker had never encountered prey that didn't fear it. This would be interesting. The largest Void Stalker moved closer to the cave entrance. Its massive body blocked most of the moonlight. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall and was built like a machine made for killing. Its muscles moved under the black armor-like skin. Each step made the ground shake slightly. Dr. Veleth tried to aim the energy weapon, but his hands were shaking too much. The other Zephyrians pressed against the back wall of the cave. Their crystal skin had turned almost black with fear. Dr. Neath was still crying quietly. Dr. Crix whispered prayers in his alien language. "Give me the weapon," Jake said calmly. "You don't know how to use it," Dr. Valeth replied. But he handed it over anyway. Jake took the energy gun and checked it quickly. It was similar to weapons he had used in the colonial wars. Different technology, but the same basic idea. Point and shoot. The display showed it had power for 8 shots, not 10 like Dr. Valeth had said earlier. The lead Void Stalker tilted its head, studying the humans and aliens in the cave. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness. The creature had perfect night vision and could see everything clearly. It saw the fear in most of the prey, but the human male was different. This one showed no fear at all. Not behind the leader, the other 2 Void Stalkers waited. They were smaller, but still deadly. One had fresh scars on its armor from recent fights. The other looked young and hungry. All 3 creatures had the same cold intelligence in their eyes. They were not just animals. They were smart hunters who planned their attacks. Amy moved closer to Jake. "What's the plan?" she whispered. "Stay alive," Jake whispered back. "Look for chances to escape." Pete was still working on the emergency beacon in the corner. His hands moved quickly over the broken parts. If he could fix it, they might be able to call the Starlight for help. But the shuttle crash had damaged most of the important pieces. Lisa checked her medical supplies. She had medicine for injuries, but nothing that would help against giant predators. The Zephyrians had told her that Void Stalker claws carried poison. One scratch could kill most alien species within minutes. The lead Void Stalker took another step forward. Now it was only 10 feet from the cave entrance. Its claws scraped against the rock floor, making a sound like knives being sharpened. The creature opened its mouth and made a low, rumbling noise. It was talking to the other 2. Predators. "They're planning something," Dr. Crix said in a scared voice. "Void Stalkers always hunt as a team. One will attack from the front, while the others circle around." Jake looked at the cave entrance. It was narrow, which was good. Only one creature could come through at a time. But the walls were not very high. A determined predator could probably climb over them. "Is there another way out of this cave?" Jake asked. Dr. Zane, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "There might be. I saw some cracks in the back wall. Maybe a small tunnel." Lisa went to check while keeping the light low. She found a narrow opening between the rocks. It was very small, but a person could crawl through it if they had to. "It goes somewhere," she reported, "but I can't see how far." The youngest Void Stalker suddenly moved. It ran to the left side of the cave entrance and started climbing the rocks. Its claws found small cracks in the stone and used them like a ladder. The creature moved fast and silent. "They're flanking us," Jake said. He aimed the energy weapon at the climbing predator and fired. The beam of energy hit the Void Stalker in the shoulder. The creature screamed in pain and fell back to the ground. Green blood dripped from the wound, but the predator was not dead. It got back up and moved away from the light, still alive and angry. Not 7 shots left. The lead Void Stalker saw its packmate get hurt and became very angry. It charged toward the cave entrance with incredible speed. Jake fired again, hitting the creature in the chest. The energy beam burned through some of the armor, but the predator kept coming. 6 shots left. Jake rolled to the side as the massive creature tried to squeeze through the narrow entrance. The Void Stalker's claws reached into the cave, trying to grab anyone they could reach. Amy screamed and jumped back. The claws missed her by inches. Pete dropped his tools and grabbed a sharp piece of metal from the broken beacon. "Get away from her!" He shouted and stabbed at the creature's arm. The metal piece broke against the Void Stalker's armor without doing any damage, but it distracted the predator for a moment. Jake used that moment to fire another shot at close range. This time the energy beam hit the creature's head. 5 shots left. The wounded predator pulled back from the cave entrance, roaring in pain and anger. Green blood covered one side of its face, and one of its red eyes was damaged. But it was still alive, and still very dangerous. Dr. Velith was amazed. "You actually hurt it," he said in shock. "No one has ever hurt a Void Stalker that badly, and lived. It's not dead yet," Jake reminded him. The third Void Stalker, which had been quiet until now, started making clicking sounds. It was talking to the other two. The wounded creatures answered with their own clicks and growls. They were making a new plan. "What are they saying?" Amy asked Dr. Crix. "I don't know their language," Dr. Crix replied, "but they sound very angry." Suddenly, all 3 Void Stalkers disappeared into the darkness. The forest became completely quiet again. Even the wind stopped blowing. The only sound was the heavy breathing of the people in the cave. Where did they go? Lisa whispered. Jake kept the energy weapon ready and watched the entrance carefully. "They're still out there. This is a trick." Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The silence was almost worse than the growling had been. Everyone in the cave was tense and scared. Even Jake felt his heart beating faster, though he tried not to show it. Dr. Nith stopped crying and listened carefully. Her alien hearing was better than human ears. "I hear scratching," she said quietly, "above us." Everyone looked up at the cave ceiling. It was made of solid rock, but there were some cracks and small holes. As they watched, small pieces of stone began falling down. Something was digging through the rock above them. "They're trying to come in from the top," Pete said. Jake fired one shot at the ceiling where the noise was loudest. The energy beam made a hole in the rock, and they heard a Void Stalker scream from somewhere above. But the digging sounds didn't. "Stop. 4 shots left. The tunnel," Jake said quickly. "Everyone into the back tunnel. Now." Lisa went first, crawling into the narrow opening. Amy followed her. Dr. Neith and Dr. Zane squeezed through next. The space was very tight for the tall Zephyrians, but they managed. Pete gathered what supplies he could carry and crawled after them. Dr. Crix and Dr. Velith went next. Jake waited until last, keeping the energy weapon pointed at both the entrance and the ceiling. Just as Jake started to crawl into the tunnel, the ceiling collapsed. A Void Stalker fell through the hole, landing right where everyone had been sitting moments before. The creature looked around the empty cave and roared with anger. Jake was halfway through the tunnel when he heard the predator behind him. Creature was too big to follow through the narrow space, but its claws could still reach pretty far. Jake felt sharp pain as claws scraped across his leg, tearing through his pants and cutting his skin. He crawled faster, following the others, through the dark tunnel. Behind him, the Void Stalker tried to dig the tunnel wider so it could follow. The sound of claws scraping against rock echoed through the narrow space. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. It was completely dark, and they had to feel their way forward with their hands. The space was so narrow that they could barely move. Dr. Nith was having trouble breathing in the tight space. Finally, Lisa's voice came from ahead. "I see light. There's an opening." One by one, they crawled out of the tunnel into another part of the forest. They were about 50 yards from the cave, hidden behind some large rocks. The alien moon provided just enough light to see. Jake was the last one out. His leg was bleeding from the claw marks, but he could still walk. Lisa quickly bandaged the wounds with supplies from her medical kit. "The cuts aren't too deep," she said, "but we need to clean them properly soon." Dr. Velith looked back toward the cave. "They will find us again. Void Stalkers can track by smell over long distances." "Then we keep moving," Jake said. He checked the energy weapon. 4 shots left, and 3 very angry predators hunting them. In the distance, they could hear the void stalkers howling. The sound was full of rage and hunger. The hunt was not over. It was just beginning. The group moved quickly through the alien forest. Jake led the way with the energy weapon ready. His leg hurt from the claw marks, but he ignored the pain. Behind him, Amy helped Dr. Nith, who was still shaking from fear. Pete and Lisa carried the emergency supplies, while Dr. Velith, Dr. Crix, and Dr. Zane stayed in the middle of the group. The forest was different at night. The purple trees looked black in the moonlight. Strange sounds came from all directions. Things moved in this shadows between the trees. But none of these normal forest creatures worried them. The real danger was still following their trail. "How far to the shuttle?" Amy asked quietly. 2 miles, Chris replied. He had been the pilot and knew the area best. But the shuttle won't fly. The engine is completely broken. "Maybe we can use the radio," Pete suggested. "If I can fix it, we might reach the starlight." Dr. Crix looked back over his shoulder. "The void stalkers will find us long before then. They are patient hunters. They will follow us all night if they have to." Jake stopped and held up his hand. Everyone froze and listened. In the distance, they could hear the howling again, but now it was coming from 2 different directions. The creatures had split up to surround them. "They're trying to cut us off from the shuttle," Jake said. "We need to change direction." "But where can we go?" Dr. Velith asked. "This entire forest belongs to them." Jake looked around at the landscape. There were hills to the north and a river. To the east, the shuttle was south, but that's where the howling was loudest. West led deeper into the forest where more predators probably lived. The river, Jake decided. Predators don't like to hunt in water. It might slow them down. They changed direction and headed toward the sound of running water. The ground became softer and muddy. Plants grew thicker here, providing more cover, also making it harder to move quickly. Dr. Neith stumbled and fell in the mud. She was the youngest Zephyrian, and not used to hard physical activity. Dr. Zane helped her up, but she was getting tired fast. "I can't keep going," she said with tears in her alien eyes. "Leave me here. Save yourselves. Nobody gets left behind," Jake said firmly. "Lisa, give me your medical kit. Dr. Nith, I need you to take one of these energy pills." Lisa handed over a small bottle of stimulant pills that human soldiers used to stay awake during long battles. Dr. Nith swallowed one, and after a few minutes, she felt stronger. They reached the river just as the first void stalker appeared behind them. The creature moved between the trees, like a black shadow. Its damaged eye glowed dimly, but it could still see them clearly. The predator had been tracking their scent trail and was getting closer. The river was about 30 feet wide and moving fast. The water looked deep and cold. On the other side was more forest, but maybe they could find a better place to hide or defend themselves. "Can everyone swim?" Jake asked. The humans nodded, but the Zephyrians looked worried. "Our bodies are heavier than yours," Dr. Velith explained. "Crystal bones don't float well." "We'll help each other across," Amy said. "Stay together." Jake went into the water first, keeping the energy weapon dry above his head. The current was strong and tried to push him downstream. The water was freezing cold and came up to his chest. Amy and Lisa helped Dr. Neith into the water. The young Zephyrian was scared of drowning, but the energy pill made her brave enough to try. Pete and Chris helped Dr. Zane and Dr. Crix. Dr. Velith, being the largest, needed help from both Jake and Amy. They were halfway across when the void stalker reached the riverbank. The creature looked at the water and made angry clicking sounds. It walked up and down the shore, testing the current with one claw. The predator was smart enough to know that fast water was dangerous, even for an apex hunter. But then the other two void stalkers arrived. The one with the wounded shoulder looked very angry. Green blood still dripped from where Jake's energy beam had hit it. The leader, with its damaged eye, studied the river carefully. "They're not following us," Dr. Crix said with relief. But Jake wasn't so sure. "Keep moving. They might know another way across." The group reached the other side of the river, cold and wet, but alive. They climbed up the muddy bank and into the forest on the other side. Behind them, the three void stalkers stood on the opposite shore, watching and planning. "Maybe we lost them," Pete said hopefully. That's when they heard splashing sounds. The void stalkers were coming across the river anyway. The leader entered the water first, using its claws to grip the rocky bottom. The current was strong, but the creature was stronger. "They're crossing," Amy said in panic. "What do we do now?" Jake looked at his options. 3 shots left in the energy weapon. 3 very angry predators. A group of scared people who couldn't run much further, and nowhere to hide in this open forest. "Find cover," he ordered. "Big rocks, thick trees, anything that will stop claws." The group spread out and hid behind whatever they could find. Jake positioned himself where he could see the river crossing. He had fought in many battles as a soldier, but never against anything like void stalkers. The lead predator was now halfway across the river. Water rushed around its massive body, but the creature kept moving forward step by step. Its red eyes never left Jake's position. This human had heard it and its pack. Now it wanted revenge. Jake aimed carefully and fired. The energy beam hit the creature in the shoulder, spinning it around in the fast current. The void stalker roared in pain, but managed to keep its footing. Green blood mixed with the river water. 2 shots left. The wounded predator became even more angry. It pushed through the water faster, no longer caring about safety. It just wanted to reach the human who kept hurting it. The second void stalker, the one with the previously wounded shoulder, started crossing too. It moved more carefully, learning from its leader's mistakes. The third creature waited on the far shore, watching for the best place to cross. Jake fired again, this time at the second predator. The shot hit it in the leg, making it stumble. But the creature recovered quickly and kept coming. These predators were incredibly tough. They could take damage that would kill most animals and keep fighting. 1 shot left. "Jake, they're almost across," Amy called out from behind a large tree. The lead void stalker reached the shore and climbed out of the water. Rivers of green blood flowed from its wounds, but the creature showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, the pain seemed to make it more dangerous. Jake had to make a choice. Use his last shot now, or save it for when the predator got closer. Either way, he would still have 2 other void stalkers to deal with after that. The wounded leader looked directly at Jake and made a sound that was almost like laughter. The creature had figured out that the human was running out of ammunition. Soon the prey would be defenseless. But Jake Morrison had survived many impossible situations by thinking differently than his enemies expected. As the massive predator charged toward his hiding spot, Jake did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He threw away the energy weapon and picked up a large rock instead. Dr. Velith watched in horror as the human discarded their only effective weapon. "What are you doing?" he screamed. Jake didn't answer. He was studying the charging void stalker, watching its movement pattern. The creature was favoring its wounded shoulder. Its damaged eye was on the right side, creating a blind spot. And it was running in a straight line, making a predictable dot at the last second. Jake rolled to the side and swung the rock as hard as he could. The stone struck the predator's wounded shoulder at the exact moment it tried to change direction. The creature stumbled and crashed into a tree, shaking the ground, but it got back up immediately, now even more angry than before. Amy stared in amazement as Jake picked up another rock. "He's fighting it hand to hand," she whispered to Dr. Crix. "A human is actually fighting a void stalker without weapons." The second predator reached the shore and joined the fight. Now Jake faced two massive creatures with nothing but rocks and his own determination. The third void stalker was still crossing the river, but would arrive soon. This was impossible. No creature in the known galaxy had ever fought void stalkers in close combat and survived. But Jake Morrison wasn't just any creature. He was human, and humans had spent millions of years learning to survive against bigger, stronger, and faster predators. The real battle was about to begin. Jake faced two massive void stalkers with nothing but his bare hands and whatever rocks he could find. The leader, bleeding from multiple wounds, circled to his left. The second predator, limping from the leg injury, moved to his right. They were trying to trap him between them. Amy watched in terror from behind her tree. "This is insane," she whispered to Dr. Crix. "No one can fight those things without weapons." But Dr. Crix was studying Jake's movements with scientific interest. "Look at how he positions himself," the alien scientist said quietly. "He's keeping both predators in front of him. He won't let them surround him." Jake's military training kicked in. He had learned long ago that when facing multiple enemies, you never let them attack from different directions at the same time. He backed toward a large boulder, using it to protect his rear. The lead void stalker grew impatient and lunged forward. Its massive claws swept through the air where Jake's head had been a second before. But Jake had already dropped to the ground and rolled between the creature's legs. As he came up behind it, he grabbed a sharp piece of broken rock and drove it into the back of the predator's wounded leg. The creature screamed and spun around, trying to catch Jake with its claws. But the human was already moving again, staying close to the predator's body with the long claws. Couldn't reach him effectively. Dr. Velith's crystal skin flickered with amazement. "He's using the creature's size against it," he said in shock. "The bigger it is, the harder it is for it to hit something small and fast." The second void stalker tried to help its pack leader by attacking from the side. But Jake saw it coming and used the first predator as a shield. The second creature's claws raked across its packmate's armor instead of hitting Jake. Both predators roared in anger and confusion. They had never fought prey that moved like this. Most creatures either ran away in terror or died quickly. This human was doing neither. Jake grabbed another rock and threw it hard at the first predator's damaged eye. The stone hit perfectly, and the creature stumbled backward, clawing at its face. Green blood poured from the wound, but the second void stalker was learning. It stopped trying to use its claws and instead tried to grab Jake with its massive hands. The predator was fast, and its reach was much longer than Jake's. Jake barely escaped the grabbing hands by diving behind a fallen log. The void stalker's claws tore chunks of wood from the log as it tried to reach him. Jake crawled quickly to the other end and came up with a long, pointed branch in his hands. The third void stalker finally finished crossing the river and joined the fight. Now Jake faced 3 angry predators, and he was starting to get tired. His legs still hurt from the earlier claw marks, and he had been fighting for almost an hour. Pete couldn't stand watching anymore. He grabbed a rock and threw it at the nearest void stalker. "Leave him alone," he shouted. The rock bounced harmlessly off the creature's armor, but it distracted the predator for a moment. That was all Jake needed. He drove the sharp branch into the second predator's wounded leg, twisting it deeper into the muscle. The creature fell to one knee, howling in pain. But as it fell, its claws swept out and caught Jake across the chest. The human's shirt tore open, and 3 red lines appeared. on his skin. The cuts were not deep, but they burned like fire. Lisa wanted to help, but Dr. Veleth held her back. "The poison," he said urgently. "Void stalker claws carry poison. He needs medical treatment immediately." But Jake didn't slow down. The poison was in his system now, making him feel sick and dizzy. Most aliens would have collapsed within minutes. But humans had spent thousands of years building up resistance to natural toxins. Jake's body was fighting the poison, buying him time. Lead Void Stalker, now blind in one eye and bleeding heavily, made a desperate charge. It ran straight at Jake, with its claws extended, no longer caring about strategy. It just wanted to kill this impossible prey. Jake waited until the last second, then dropped flat on the ground. The massive predator ran right over him and crashed into the boulder behind him. The impact was so hard that cracks appeared in the rock dot as the stunned creature tried to get back up. Jake grabbed a heavy stone with both hands and brought it down on the back of the predator's neck. The stone shattered, but the blow was powerful. Enough to drive the Void Stalker face first into the ground. The second predator, still on one knee, tried to swipe at Jake with its claws. But Jake caught the creature's wrist with both hands and used its own momentum to redirect the attack into the third Void Stalker. The third predator, fresh and undamaged until now, took a set of claws across its chest from its own packmate. It roared in surprise and anger, then turned on the wounded second predator. Amy watched in amazement as Jake made the three apex predators fight each other. "He's turning them against each other," she said in wonder. But the strategy only worked for a few moments. The Void Stalkers were smart enough to realize what was happening. The third predator backed away from its packmates and refocused on Jake. This one was different from the others. It was younger, faster, and completely undamaged. Its red eyes showed cold intelligence as it studied Jake's fighting style. This predator had learned from watching its packmates' mistakes. Jake was breathing hard now. The poison was making him weak, and he had used up most of his energy fighting the first two creatures. His chest burned where the claws had scratched him, and his vision was starting to blur. The young Void Stalker approached slowly, staying just out of reach. It was patient, waiting for the poison to do its work. Soon the human would collapse, and then it would be an easy kill. But Jake had one more trick to try. As the predator came closer, he pretended to stumble and fall. The Void Stalker saw its chance and pounced Dot at the last second. Jake rolled aside and grabbed a long, sharp piece of metal from the broken shuttle parts that Pete had dropped earlier. As the predator landed where Jake had been, the human drove. The metal spiked up into the creature's throat. The young Void Stalker made a choking sound and staggered backward. Green blood poured from the wound in its neck. It tried to roar, but only gurgling sounds came out. The lead predator, still stunned from hitting the boulder, shook its head and tried to stand up. But Jake was already moving toward it. The humans' eyes had changed. They now showed something that the Zephyrians had never seen before, the cold determination of a species that had fought its way to the top of the food chain. Dr. Crix watched in fascination and horror as Jake grabbed the wounded leader's head with both hands. The human's muscles strained with effort as he twisted the massive skull. There was a wet cracking sound, and the Void Stalker went limp. The second predator, wounded and bleeding, tried to crawl away. But Jake followed it. The poison was making him sick, but it had also done something else. It had awakened something primitive and dangerous in the human's mind. Amy had studied human history and psychology. She recognized what was happening to Jake. "He's in survival mode," she told Dr. Veleth. "Humans have a built-in response to life-threatening situations. They become something different, something more dangerous." Jake caught up to the crawling Void Stalker and grabbed its wounded leg. With strength that seemed impossible for his size, he dragged the massive creature back toward the rocks. The predator tried to fight back, but it was too weak from blood. Loss. What happened next would be talked about in Zephyrian scientific circles for generations. Jake Morrison, a human weighing less than 200 pounds, began to systematically tear apart a creature that weighed over 800 pounds and had armor-like skin. He used the creature's own broken claws as weapons. He found weak spots in the armor that millions of years of evolution had tried to hide. He applied leverage and anatomy knowledge that no alien scientist had ever seen used in combat. The young Void Stalker with the throat wound tried one last attack. It lunged at Jake from behind, its remaining strength focused on one final strike. Jake heard it coming and spun around. This time, he didn't dodge or redirect the attack. He met it head-on, catching the creature's claws in his bare hands. For a moment, human and alien apex predator were locked together in a test of pure strength. Then Jake's hands closed around the creature's throat, and he began to squeeze. Jake's hands tightened around the young Void Stalker's throat. The creature was strong, but Jake had found the exact spot where its armor was weakest. His fingers pressed into the soft tissue beneath the hard scales. The predator's red eyes began to dim as it struggled to breathe. The Void Stalker tried to rake Jake with its claws, but the human twisted his body to avoid the worst of the damage. The claws still cut across his back, adding new wounds to the ones he already had. But Jake didn't let go. His grip only got stronger now. Amy watched in shocked silence as her captain fought the apex predator with nothing but determination and knowledge of anatomy. Jake had studied alien biology for years as part of his military training. Now that knowledge was keeping him alive. Dr. Veleth's crystal skin flickered rapidly with amazement and fear. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Humans are supposed to be one of the weaker species in the galaxy. How is he doing this?" The young Void Stalker's struggles became weaker. Its claws stopped moving. Finally, with a wet choking sound, the creature went limp in Jake's hands. The human let it fall to the ground and turned toward the last remaining predator. The second Void Stalker, wounded and bleeding heavily, was trying to crawl away into the forest. It had seen what happened to its packmates and no longer wanted to fight. For the first time in its life, a Void Stalker was afraid, but Jake wasn't finished. The poison in his system was making him sick, but it had also changed something in his mind. He wasn't thinking like a civilized human anymore. He was thinking like a predator that had been challenged and needed to eliminate all threats. Jake walked slowly toward the crawling creature. His clothes were torn and bloody. Green alien. Blood mixed with his own red blood on his skin. His eyes had a cold look that made even his own crew members step back. "Jake," Amy called out softly. "It's over. The creature is beaten. You don't need to kill it." Jake stopped and looked at her. For a moment, his eyes seemed normal again. The civilized human was still there, fighting against the primitive survival instincts. But then he looked at the wounded Void Stalker and saw it reaching for something hidden under a rock. The creature had found the energy weapon that Jake had thrown away earlier. With its last bit of strength, it was trying to grab the gun to shoot. The human who had defeated its pack-Jake moved faster than anyone thought possible. He reached the weapon first and kicked it away from the dying predator. Then he grabbed the creature's head with both hands, just as he had done to the pack leader. There was another wet cracking sound, and the last Void Stalker stopped moving. Jake stood over the 3 dead apex predators, breathing heavily. Blood dripped from his wounds onto the alien ground. The poison was making him dizzy, but he was still standing. He had done something that no other species in the galaxy had ever accomplished. Doctor. Crix approached carefully, his scanner beeping as it recorded everything. "The readings are incredible," he said in amazement. "Your heart rate, Adrenaline levels, muscle tension, you became something completely different during the fight. Lisa ran over with her medical kit. "Sit down," she ordered Jake. "You're poisoned and losing blood. I need to treat these wounds immediately." Jake let her help him sit against a rock. Now that the fight was over, he could feel how badly hurt he was. The claw marks burned like fire, and his whole body ached. But he was alive, and the creatures that had hunted them were dead. "How?" Dr. Veleth asked, still staring at the dead void stalkers. "How did you kill them with your bare hands?" "They have armor that can stop energy weapons. Their strength is 10 times greater than yours." Jake winced as Lisa cleaned his wounds. "Strength isn't everything," he said quietly. "They were bigger and stronger, but they always fought the same way. Once I learned their patterns, I could predict what they would do. But the anatomy knowledge," Dr. Crick said. "You knew exactly where to attack to cause the most damage. You found weak spots that our scientists have never discovered. Humans have been fighting bigger, stronger predators for millions of years," Jake explained. "We learned to study our enemies, find their weaknesses, use their size against them. Every creature has vulnerable spots if you know where to look." Amy sat down beside him. "On Earth, humans were never the biggest or strongest predators. But we became the most dangerous because we could think, adapt, and never give up." Pete had been working on the emergency beacon during the entire fight. Now it finally came to life with a beeping sound. "I got it working," he announced. "The starlight should receive our signal." Dr. Nith, who had been hiding behind a tree during the battle, came out slowly. She looked at the dead void stalkers with wonder and fear. "Will there be more?" she asked. Nervously, "Maybe," Jake said. "But they'll think twice before attacking humans again." Lisa finished bandaging Jake's wounds and gave him medicine to fight the poison. "You need real medical treatment," she warned. "This is just temporary help." They waited by the river for rescue. Jake rested against the rock while the others kept watch. The alien forest was quiet now. Even the normal night sounds had stopped. It was as if the entire planet knew that something unprecedented had happened. Dr. Veleth recorded everything in his scientific journal. "This will change how the galaxy sees humans," he said. "Until now, most species thought you were relatively weak, friendly traders and explorers, but not warriors. We prefer to be peaceful," Amy said. "But when we have to fight, we fight to win." 3 hours later, they saw lights in the sky. The Starlight had sent a rescue shuttle. As it landed near the river, Captain Rodriguez himself stepped out with a medical team. "What happened down here?" Rodriguez asked, looking at the scene. "Our sensors detected massive life forms, then nothing." "Void stalkers," Dr. Veleth explained. 3 of them. They attacked our group." Rodriguez looked at the dead creatures in amazement. "How did you kill them? Did the energy weapons work better than expected?" "Captain Morrison killed them," Dr. Crick said quietly. "With his bare hands." Rodriguez stared at Jake, who was being helped into the shuttle by the medical team. "That's impossible. Void stalkers are legendary killers. Nothing fights them hand to hand and wins. Humans do," Dr. Veleth said simply. The rescue team loaded everyone into the shuttle. As they lifted off from the planet, Jake looked down at the forest where he had fought for his life. The 3 dead void stalkers were already being investigated by other alien creatures, who seemed amazed that the legendary predators had been defeated. Back on the Starlight, the ship's doctor treated Jake's wounds properly. The poison was neutralized, and the claw marks were healing well. Within a few days, he would be completely recovered. Dr. Veleth sent his report to the Zephyrian Science Council and the Galactic Federation. The response was immediate and shocked. No species had ever defeated void stalkers in direct combat. The creatures had been considered unstoppable, apex predators, But a human had killed 3 of them with nothing but determination, intelligence, and the will to survive. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The story was told on 1,000 different worlds in 100 different languages. Some species didn't believe it at first. Others demanded to see the recorded evidence. The video recordings that Dr. Crix had made during the fight became the most watched files in galactic history. Scientists studied Jake's fighting techniques. Military experts analyzed his tactics. Philosophers debated what it meant for a species to have such hidden potential. But the most important result was simpler than all the scientific analysis. The galaxy learned that humans were not just another peaceful species looking for friends and trade partners. They were survivors. They were fighters. And when pushed to their limits, they could become something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They were the kind of species that could tear apart apex predators with their bare hands when everything was on the line. The message spread from star to star. Do not underestimate humans. They may look weak and friendly, but they carry the potential for incredible violence when they need to protect themselves or others. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. And perhaps that was exactly what needed to happen.